It's Saturday in Colorado, and we're here with Cipriano Ortega, a Denver native, musician, artist, poet, theater performer. How are you, Cipriano?
I'm doing pretty well. How about you?
Great, thank you. Thank you for being here. Also accompanying Cipriano is Vitaliy Minyaylo. Minyaylo.
Hi.
Got it right. I'm going to get
Good.
it right again, I promise.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thanks for being on the show, Vitaliy, on the drums back there. So we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff today, but let's start out with a little bit of your background, Cipriano, as a Denver native. How's it been growing up in Denver?
It's been interesting and very good. There have certainly been a lot of changes since I was a kid. I've grown up here. I was born in St. Joseph Hospital, I believe. The building that I was born in isn't even there anymore. I think they got a new building there now. It's all technologically better. Anyway, I was a C-section baby. How far do you want me to go back? No, I'm just kidding.
No problem.
The changes have been interesting. The gentrification, of course, that buzzword is definitely something that's been happening more and more. And the way I see it is there's been kind of, these small little hangouts that existed. I mean, we used to go to the Leela's, right? Yeah, and we used to go to there. We would go to the Mercury Cafe. We would go to the market as well, too. And two of those are gone. And the Mercury, unfortunately, I think for now, it's still kind of up in the air. It's for sale, I think, and I think Maryland still wants to do some kind of group ownership or something like that. But my point is that we were used to these kind of places. And My Brother's Bar is another hangout that we go to as well, too. And a lot of those places are seeming to fade out, and what's starting to replace them are these local places that are all kind of funded or organized or put together by, corporate companies. I think where the market is now, I believe it is somewhat local companies, but I know not a fact, but I'm pretty sure it's some sort of out-of-state corporation or company that's taken hold of it. And they have the money and they have the resources, and this imagination or this new vision of Denver has kind of been happening. How long would you say has it been happening?
I'd say the last 5 years.
Yeah, the last 5 years have been the most crucial in terms of the changes that we've seen, and it's kind of almost wanting to reinvent the scene or make it something that it isn't. I mean, before that, everybody would say it was just a cow town, and we kind of were cultured and we were kind of understanding things, and then people were starting to label Denver as or Colorado as the LA of the West, and then all these different slogans and things. And then we got a better Denver Art Museum, and that, I believe, German architect put that new building. And
so you have a health condition called muscle tension dysphonia.
Yes.
What is that, and how does that affect you as a performer?
Well, essentially, I developed a lot of bad muscle memory habits in terms of my voice, and I used to sing with a lot more aggression and compression, so a lot of belting, a lot of rasp that my natural voice doesn't have. And being young and uneducated, I just thought that's what you do as a rock star or as a rock star-esque singer, trying to capture that Kurt Cobain, Lane Staley, Chris Cornell kind of sound, because I come from that kind of inspiration. But, in turn, I also did a lot of martial arts, and I believe that I probably received a thrust or a punch or a strike to the throat on the left side, and I think that's kind of what offset everything. Not to mention I was doing a lot of weightlifting back then, and I think that also contributed to that tension. And not to mention mentally, I was in a lot more of a tension state. I was a lot more
very angry people.
Yes, we come from a lot of friction in the sense of, I don't want to say trauma in the sense of, it is to some degree, but a lot of experiences that have led us to a nihilistic perspective that gives us the sonic field that we live in, and I think that's why we do it to begin with. But back to the voice, I spent about 5 years having to restructure that, so I had to rediscover my body, reconnect to it, and understand my limitations. Mm-hmm. And from those limitations, a new entire sound that was much more authentic, I think, to my voice emerged. And so here we are today. So now it's not necessarily a condition, but I do have a cyst on the left vocal fold that does indeed still exist. I always say the cyst persists, but there's ways to obviously deal with that, and through voice therapy and just knowledge of the voice and breath and etc., I've been able to survive and keep on going. And it was a pretty intense time. It was 5 years of a lot of reflection and just having to accept the fact that I couldn't pretty much do anything without being in immense discomfort. And that puts you in a different perspective once you come out of that. And I will try my hardest to never forget that feeling, because I don't want to go back to the place I was before. And now that I've turned 30, I feel like I'm a little bit more understanding of certain things. So
by place you mean excuse me, by place you were before, do you mean before your
yeah, mentally and spiritually and just objectively? I think I was much more sensitive in the fact that I thought everything was about me, but now I'm just more seeing the bigger systematic picture of things, and I also just want to let things go and just allow those emotions to flow through me creatively versus destructively or just not efficiently, if that makes sense.
It does. So you've talked a lot about your music, and I'd like to hear some and hear what you're talking about. So why don't you give us the intro for the first song you're going to play?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this song is written on a 2-string slide bass, and that whole project is inspired by the wonderful, amazing band Morphine, and more specifically the lead singer and bassist of that band, Mark Sandman. And this song is called Promise, and it stems from, it was written on the beginning of COVID, and I wrote it in one day and made a music video as well too that I can definitely give a link to as well too. And it's gotten a lot of national and international attention in terms of the art world. A lot of the artists that I know and organizations that I know very much enjoy it. It'll also be premiering at Teatro's Film Festival pretty soon as well. But in summation, it's a song about all the promises that the U.S. government has given to the Native people and have never kept. So I'll just say that.
Promise me good things, like a day without pain, a time with no money. You're on the promise train. If my word is gold, then my time is sold off. I don't feel cold. It hits hard like a buckle on skin. If you can't keep your promise, then at least do this. Keep the blankets warm and steal a kiss. If my word is gold, then my time is sold off. I don't feel the cold. It hits hard like a buckle.
I'm actually going to ask Vitaliy, how did you two meet?
We used to take martial arts together. We did Aikido for like a really long time ago. And then we ended up going to the same school together, which was DSA, Denver School of the Arts. I went to high school there for 1 year. Then I got kicked out for bad grades and slacking off. But Cipriano continued, and we kind of crossed paths there, but we didn't really talk. I don't know.
Yeah, Vitaliy was too cool for school, and we did definitely talk in Aikido, but anytime we were in DSA, it was always like, yo, that's about it.
Yeah, it's weird. Were you like a grade before me or 2 grades?
Yeah, I think you were a year older.
Oh, okay, that's why. Yeah, so we only saw each other in the halls then. And then we kind of did our own thing for a while, and then he hit me up, I think, my first year of Berkeley, and he was looking for a drummer for like a pop, or not a pop, but like a punk band.
They wanted to be Nirvana, me and this other fellow. We just still make music together. His name is Austin Wilson. He's a beautiful filmmaker, and he plays music as well too, and he's a bassist as well. But yeah, that was kind of I was very younger, I guess, and trying to just figure out my sound. And yeah, I always wanted him in my band. Ever since I had a concept of what it is to be in a band, this man over here was always my idea of who I wanted to have in it. I don't know why. I think it was meant to be, and I think.
Well, he's a fucking phenomenal drummer. That's why.
Yes, he is a very phenomenal drummer, very much so.
Yeah, but we didn't actually start playing together officially until like 2014. So quite a long time after I left Berkeley.
Okay.
And
when did you? Sorry to interrupt, but when did you start playing drums, Vitaliy?
That depends. Formally, I started when I got my first drum set in my birthday of freshman year of high school.
Okay.
Which would have probably been 2005.
Awesome.
But I actually kind of was always about rhythm, like ever since I was a baby. Apparently, I don't remember this, but my parents used to say that I would like emulate different rhythms of different like random sounds that I would hear. So I love trains, and we lived by a train, so we'd take the train every day as I was like a baby, and they said I would like play with a stick and emulate the sound of like a train. So it'd be like da-da, 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 da-da. So you'd have this like toddler or baby sitting there with a stick, being like da-da, 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 da-da. So yeah, I always kind of had like a crazy obsession with music in general. So like the way I'd even play with toys is I would make up like scores, like like for movies. So I actually, like, the best part of playing with toys or playing with anything was making up my own soundtracks as I would play with it. So I mean, I was always moved by music and more like possessed by rhythm. I just can't like not play rhythm.
So in past interviews, you've mentioned something called that you describe as the hostile universe. What do you mean by that? And can you expand on that idea?
Yeah, of course. Let me change the mic stand out here, because we're going to go to another thing shortly here.
Of course.
Well, I can't take full credit of that kind of use of words all to my own. I mean, Tool and the album 10,000 Days, and specifically this song Vicarious. Maynard, James Keenan friend, one of his friends, I believe, came up with that. The full phrase is the universe is hostile, so impersonal. So that's part of it. And all the Tool fans are going to be like, you didn't say the whole thing, and I can't remember the whole thing. But that concept, that separation between interpersonal self and the ego, and panning out of that, almost as if like we're talking about film, zooming out of that and looking at the whole entire world as one organism, and to understand our place in it as one specific species is kind of where that comes from, because we have a certain sentience, we have a certain understanding, and we can create these things and destroy these things with our minds. And the universe doesn't really care, because life feeds on life. That's just a fact. You know, whether you're vegetarian, vegan, or whatever, not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not saying that.
Another Tool reference.
Yeah, exactly. Life feeds on life is another Tool reference. From that point, just that realization and, you know, Tool giving that, and also just my background again to Japanese culture and martial arts. I studied Buddhism and et cetera. So this impermanence, this sense of impermanence, this sense of understanding, again, sentience and consciousness, ego, that's where it comes from. So the hostility part of it really comes into the fact of just anytime when I was going through stuff, and anytime I still do, if I'm like, oh, I feel lonely, or I feel like I can't relate to people, or like I want to die, or something like that, I just think about all the other creatures out there, whether it's plants or bugs or animals that are trying to simply survive. You know, they want to just survive. And this hostility, there's things right now as we speak are trying to survive. There's squirrels and ants and et cetera, or whatever, that are trying to constantly make this pursuit of existence. That's just our purpose. And we try to fight it or define it or organize it in our human minds. And for me, it's like, it simply just is. So that's kind of where the hostility comes from. And again, the hostility is my interpretation because I come from a place of being a human. So, and I think your follow-up question to that is, how does it interpret, how do I fit into it now with COVID and also the health stuff that I described? At this point, for me, it's just more of an acknowledgement. Like for me, I just see it over in a corner and I'm like, yep, I do understand that's part of my life and that's where I come from, but it's not always hostile for me. And I count that as a blessing, but I'm always ready for it because reality just has a way of throwing you on your back, if that makes sense.
It does. You've mentioned so far some of your influences primarily being grunge era bands, Nirvana, Morphine, Tool. Although Tool arguably still, they released an album, 2 years ago. But you know, the bulk of their material comes from the 90s and grunge era. Do you think that those ideas are still encapsulated in today's society?
Oh, absolutely. I just think they're not shined into the spotlight as they were back in the 90s. I still think, because when I do live streams, the people that I engage with, a lot of them are from grunge fandom, I should say. And it's comforting to know that there's other people out there who are like nodding their head and like, that lyric hit me. Because all those lyrics back in the day, and even now, because you just put them on and listen, definitely hit a big nerve for me, and they comfort me. And I can't tell you how much that music has helped me survive. Again, going back to survivalism and just listening to Kurt Cobain and Lane Staley and Mark Sandman, all these people. And it's just like, I'm not alone, you know, and I know, and also by reading YouTube comments as well too, is that this stuff is still relevant because we still feel these things. It's just not as grandiose or almost put into like a caricature, because it slowly became a caricature, you know, the torn jeans and the flannel and cuts, thanks to Kurt.
It was cool.
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool to be like, you know, life is just, but now it's changing.
Yeah,
what would you say?
It's cool to good vibes only and be positive and doing yoga and
self.
Which is like, it is cool, but it's not cool when you do it sanctimoniously, you know?
Yeah, there's this link to spiritualism and egotism that I think needs to be shredded. I think a lot of people who, you know, are doing certain things, not again to judge, but it's like, if it's just about appearance and ego, I don't think you're meditating right. So,
the phrase "live your best life" comes to mind. People tend to use that in selfish or to justify selfish behavior.
Right.
That comes to mind a lot. As you're speaking about this, about how those ideas of those grunge era bands are still relevant, but have kind of faded away from the mainstream. You know, I think about the song "Cure for Pain" by Morphine, where he's you know basically talking about how that we're too reliant on pharmaceuticals, and you know it's interesting looking at that perspective, or you know having that perspective in the era of COVID, where everyone's being vaccinated and there's simultaneously this massive anti-vax movement. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I'll be honest, I got vaccinated with the Johnson & Johnson, I believe that's how you pronounce it, vaccination earlier this month, and I was petrified. I will be quite frank, because, you know, indigenous person of color who sings about systematic oppression and politics and corporations and greed and etc., you know, and this distrust for the government in general in the Trump era as it is, I was very petrified, and I didn't know, and I still don't know what to believe. And that frustrated me. I couldn't find an answer. And for most of my life, I'm just like, there is no answer. And that's, again, going to the universe is hostile. And I don't mind that. But when it comes to putting something into my body that's injected, that's man-made, I'm, you know, kind of cautious about that. So, yeah, it's, and I have another song that we'll be going into about, oh, good tie, thank you for that, pharmaceutical stuff and pill popping. And that comes from just a background of mental health challenges. I'm not going to call them issues for me. And just understanding that this concept of, you know, popping a pill is going to fix everything. And I know a lot of people who obviously, and I want to obviously acknowledge those people and understand that people have to take certain medications sometimes. But for me, that experience was not positive. And again, I'm not shunning pharmaceuticals. I'll take aspirin. You know, I'm not Tom Cruise, is what I'm saying. But my distrust still was there, and my inaccess to find truth or any kind of answers was just frustrating, is really kind of what my point is. But going back to Cure for Pain and that song as well too, is like, I think we're in a time with the internet and stuff that we want to be so removed from experience, but we still want to experience it, but through a filter, and everything has to be posed so correctly, and we got to take a good selfie. And, you know, you could say that that's from my generation, but I know that there are people that are younger than me that really are frustrated by that plight and that struggle. So that ties into just pharmaceuticals and such, in the sense of just wanting to feel numb. And that's what the next song's about.
Let's go right into it.
Depression knocking as my fears blistering. I got a hyper focus as I now begin. This is modern living, this is how it's done. Just got to remember, pills off having fun.
After both those reminders, sorry, I forgot to hit record. Let me just start it again.
No problem. Sounded good, though.
Yeah, it's all these moving parts, but I want to do a shout out because I usually have my sound guy, but his mother unfortunately passed away from COVID. And just a shout out to you, Tim, because I wish you were here so I didn't have to think of all these moving parts. So let's start again.
Okay.
Depression knocking as my fears blistering. I got a hyper focus as I now begin. This is modern living, this is having fun. Just got to remember, pills are for having fun. Doodly-dop, 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 doodly-dop. You're speaking blah blah and sheep are shuffling. See them do the cha-cha and make more of them. Sheer shed the farmer as winter begins. I know that we are reckless now that we are sins. Just like a trash compactor, I see a sheepish grin. Mix up a mimosa, orange pulp the pupa in. This is modern living, this is how it's done. Just got to remember, pills are for having fun.
Yes, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, that's right. That paperwork you just finished, well, that's no longer applicable here. You see, we don't care about you. We just want you to feed and breathe. Breathe in the cancer and exhale life.
Now that you've heard my story, an eroticism hymn, climb up to the rooftops and jump off of them. This is modern living, this is how it's done. Just got to remember. Pills are for feeling numb.
And I guess my question is like considering the title, considering the content, considering the fact that there's a performative element. Do you improv your movements for this piece, or
That's a very good question. That's probably the first time anyone's ever asked me that. In short, yes. I don't identify because I want to respect those who have studied the skills of dance to the dancers. I am a mover. I let things go through me, and a lot of it is just feeling it. As some people, because I've done some gospel music when I was younger in a couple musicals, and you let the spirit move through you, is what they say. And for me, for these particular numbers that we're playing now, this project, separate from the two-string, is more manic in the sense of it's coming out of a place that has been shut in for 5 years, essentially. And again, going back to jazz, I do want to bring up the fact that jazz is from black musicians. So jazz was developed as a way to come up with something that, you know, white musicians couldn't do. I've studied jazz in the sense of academic approach, not so much in theory, but just in where it comes from. I believe Ken Burns did a really good documentary. I think it was a 5-part series on jazz, and it's phenomenal. And again, so it's coming from that place of wanting to do something that other people can't do. And again, ego aside, it's just for us, at least for me, in the sense of the influence of jazz is not so much I wish I was more versed in music theory in that sense, well, that's where he comes in, but just to embrace that sense of improvisation, but also the fact of this is another language that I want to blend, because again, going to the Doors, going to Morphine, and somewhat Radiohead as well too, using poetry and not breaking down the verse and the chorus and the structure of a song, but also questioning what is a song, you know, and what is a poem, and what is performing arts, and what is just standing up and playing your instrument. All those things I want to question, because it's just fun. It's just quite frankly fun to just, you know, pick and choose what you want. And again, you know, doing movements and creating costumes that are made to be. I gotta get a new shtick because the suit thing, everybody knows what's gonna happen with the suit. But anyway, that's just what it's about for me. So if that makes sense.
And the song, like this particular song, I would say, it's kind of like a parody of jazz, and it's kind of taking a stab at like all the pretense that goes around that whole like culture of jazz, because like the rhythm section of this song is like the antithesis of jazz. I'm using an electric kit. Right. You know, you're not. I mean,
of course, the medium that we're recording this on sort of demands that, right?
Yeah. But it's also done to a click track, so that's, I don't know that's something that ever happens in jazz ever, especially live. And it's like composed, so I'm not.
Yeah,
like,
and the click track itself comes from the fact that we can't find anyone else who wants to do this.
well, there's
we've,
yeah.
I mean, we've tried to incorporate, and again, this is neither here nor there. It just is what it is. And we needed a sax player, and we're still looking for one. And we had to write the sax part because we wanted sax, and I wanted a bass part. So it's not a necessity, and it's simpler just to work between the two of us. And we are open to collaboration. So if anybody would like to, please. I am collaborating with other people on different projects. But for this particular Cipriano thing, that's just out of necessity as well too. But that is a very good point. Very good point.
Yeah, like the instruments are not acoustic instruments that you're hearing, so they're like written on like a keyboard with like a MIDI. So everything about it is just kind of like playing off the idea of jazz and
very much focusing on the fact of artificiality and what's artificial. So it's, again, because it comes from talking about pharmaceuticals, which are man-made, artificial, constructed things. Because the first EP that's going to hopefully be released in the next year or so is a series of 7 songs with this structure, what we just described. And it comes, again, from that place, out of necessity, but also just what can we do? How can we make these very rigid, digital things sound a bit more acoustic, and trying to find that realm is what we're doing. And again, another beautiful band that does that is Radiohead, and a lot of other bands as well too, but the one I'm thinking of is Radiohead for sure.
Wonderful. I think we should go into the next song.
Yes.
Right?
Yep, and hopefully I won't screw. All right, so everyone out there, this one is called Rat Race. Up next, and whoopsie, that's another one.
Race is fun, so long as you're in one. No cheddar cheese, my friend. That's where it ends. His pants are down, his ass in the air. Waiting for the punishment that's never there. The bar is set high for it to come down. On all your dreams in this shit town. Flounder around, you flounder around, you flounder around in this shit town. You flounder around, you flounder around, you flounder around in this shit town. Gasping for air, remember this. No one cares no one cares. The rat race is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to ask you more about your writing process. You have mentioned in the past your heavy influence from a band called Morphine.
Right.
I had never heard of this band before I started researching for this interview. And I've listened to a lot of them over the last couple of weeks, and I can't believe I've never heard of them. But also I was impressed with how timeless their sound felt. They obviously have, they're sort of labeled as a jazz rock band, and there's certainly elements of jazz, but they're also very grungy. And you've attested your use of the two-string bass to that band's use of the two-string bass. So would you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's been a very beautiful journey so far. One of the biggest influences when I was a kid was when my father put on LA Woman by The Doors. And I heard Jim Morrison's voice, and I heard the lyrics, and I heard the melodies, and I heard that slide guitar. And I was like, what is that? There was something about that that really just spoke to me really deeply. And I always liked slide, but I never really put much thought into it. And I took some guitar and played some guitar, and have composed plenty of songs on guitar, but never felt a huge connection to guitar, honestly. I love guitar, don't get me wrong. I love so many guitars. I could go off on a huge list, but me personally, having the motivation to pick it up and learn more and more about it never really piqued me too much. I can definitely play it, like I said, but not much motivation with that. So I was watching The Sopranos, I think about 2019, and this song comes on that's not the usual theme of The Sopranos, and I'm like, what is that sound? And I heard it, the first striking chords of Buena, which is by Morphine, and I was hooked. I'm getting chills just thinking about it now, and I was like, I had to research it. And at that time, I was like, I want to come up with something that's simple. And I was like, one of the thoughts that kind of dropped in my head was like, one-string bass. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. I can play a one-string bass. It's just one string. And then I was like, okay. So I got one of those, and then I kept researching Morphine, and I'm like, wait a second. I didn't realize that this band, this singer, this person is playing a two-stringed bass. And not only that, it's slide. And I'm like, oh my God, like that's it. And like the second I saw him play it, and the second I heard it, I was like, I need to immerse myself in this. So I've built two of them so far, thanks to a beautiful, wonderful man by the name of Scott Lofquist, and he lives not too far from me. And I brought over the hunk of wood, and it was kind of carved out, and I'm like, can you help me? He had 30 plus years of experience. And he was kind of like not too sure before, because I was like, I think he thought I wanted him to build it. But then I was like, no, like I want to be involved, because I build things. I'm an artist, and I like to do sculpture, and I thought I would do sculpture. So this was the first one. This is Candy, and the second one is over here, and she's Claire, and they're both based off of songs by Morphine. And yeah, I just did a lot of research of Mark's bass, and the pickups, and the string gauge, and the slide type, and the amplifier, and the pedals, and all that stuff. It's just been so fun. And just to play with that frequency has been great. So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell where it comes from.
So Vitaliy, question for you. How in Cipriano's songwriting process, how do you incorporate? Do you guys just kind of jam it out and you find a rhythm, or do you find yourself contributing much more in the songwriting process?
It really depends, but in this particular project, like the two-string bass, I let Cipriano kind of get the skeleton or the main idea of the song, and then I dress it up however he thinks it should be, basically. So I'll add stuff to it, or I'll interpret my own rhythms, usually on the spot, and then I'll do different takes of it, like on the drums, and like whatever I think sticks best is what I usually use. But a lot of my playing is improvised,
right?
I guess. So,
do you have a background in jazz?
Not like, sort of. Like I studied it at Berkeley, and I play a lot of it on my own, but I haven't like had any opportunities to play with any other like jazz musicians.
Berkeley School of Music?
Yeah, Berkeley College of Music in Boston.
Awesome.
Yeah, I listen to like a ton of jazz too, like contemporary jazz. So it's actually a huge influence on me. But like the improvisation element, I kind of play that way with everything, even like with metal. Like every time we play in our metal project, I would always just improvise whatever I want over the songs.
For sure. I definitely am a firm believer that metal takes its roots directly from jazz, particularly when you're talking about the rhythm sections. Do you agree?
Yeah, it depends on which type. Like I would say like progressive metal definitely borrows from jazz a ton. Yeah. Maybe not so much the straight ahead metal, but
what do you mean by straight ahead metal?
Like just the regular, the early commercial successful metal, like Metallica, all that stuff.
Metallica and Slayer.
Yeah, all that.
Okay.
Slayer.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
wanted to note too that Vitaliy is not just a drummer. He comes up with other parts in other songs. You'll hear some piano and some saxophone, and I want to give him due credit because he wrote all those parts. So I am the vocalist, lyricist, and bassist, but he indeed definitely brings more than just drums. So good job.
Awesome. Well, let's get to another song.
Okay. Yeah, and this one comes from a lot of ghosting on texts. And it's from a perspective of somebody who's frustrated, but then also kind of turns creepy. So,
Awesome.
Wait. I gotta record it for GarageBand. 1 sec. Okay.
sent it at 2:45, and I won't let this lie, since she will not reply. She will not reply. Hit send, hit send. Can you hit send? Hit send now. Hello. Hello. Seen at 2:46, and I don't like her tricks. Please, baby, can you reply? If not, I'll just die. A clock strikes 3, it's time to go. on a train to Mexico. I guess I should let this go and catch that train to Mexico. One more thing before I do, I'm gonna send this text off to you. Hit send, gonna hit send now. Hello, hello. Sick dog on this train got me sick, got me drained. Since she will not reply, a lovesick dog's gonna die. A lovesick dog is what I am. Just reply on Instagram. Ooh, that's a nice selfie, I like it a lot. Yeah, baby, you know that you're real hot. Hit send, can you hit send now. Hello, hello. She blocked me. Yeah, she blocked me. I make another account. It's so easy these days, just stay in touch. Let's stay in touch. Let's stay in touch. All right.
Okay. Any closing thoughts, fellas?
I don't think so. This has been great. Yeah,
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, and I'll just send over those recordings, and this has been awesome, and I appreciate you very much just taking the time and doing this program.
I appreciate you coming on. It's been a real pleasure having you both. Real quickly, where can the audience find more of both of you?
Currently, for me, the main two platforms that I do, because I have such a love-hate relationship with social media, is three of them, actually. There's Vimeo, which pretty much has all my content, both poetry and performing arts and just weird animation stuff. Stop motion, I should say. And then YouTube, which has some of the live streaming stuff that I'm looking into as well, too. And then also Facebook itself. And just not a private, but a personal account that I post everything publicly, because I don't see the whole point of trying to keep things secret on the internet. And that's where you can reach me. You can even also call me if you want, but I don't know if that might be dangerous.
Yeah.
Vitaliy, do you have any pages to promote?
Not
You have a website.
Not really. I have a website, VitaliYMinyaylo.com. I don't really maintain it that well since COVID hit, but I had like different dates on there for performances, and I have a few videos of covers I did, some artwork that I do. It's kind of like my way of getting away from social media and just kind of having my own little
Collective
space.
thing.
Yeah. It is mostly just like the frustration of not being able to find a web developer who can help me with a website, so I decided to make it myself. But as of right now, I'm actually not on social media, and
Good for you.
Good for you.
yeah, that was a big revelation for me last
Yeah,
year.
he's gone
Actually,
completely.
yeah, I don't miss it.
I only do it because I have to keep some presence, especially now because of COVID, things like this, and I'm grateful for them. But that's about it that I try to do on social media. So,
Yeah,
100% agree with you.
with you.
Yeah.
yeah.
But I kind of want to just keep like if I release anything that's worthwhile, then I'll kind of put it up for people to find it. But otherwise, I feel like there's nothing really.
Yeah. Well, in terms of the project too, we're going to be releasing one EP and one album as well too. Hopefully, in the next 2 years. So keep an eye out for that, and I'll be sure to mention it to you as well too when it's finally in my hands. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And all those links will be in the show notes as well for the audience.
That's great.
Cipriano Ortega and Vitaliy Minyaylo. We got it right this time.
You did.
I did. Till next time, this has been Cololocal. Wear a mask, stay socially distanced, get vaccinated. We'll see you next time.